questions about the Hadith, the Sunnah, Sharia. All right, let's then talk briefly in the time that we have left about some things related to Islamic architecture and art. One of the key things, of course, with Islamic architecture would be the mosque. The term mosque comes from the Arabic word masjid, which means kneeling place. Right? And so a lot of the focus of the mosque has been on prayer. And in mosques, of course, there is a huge space for prayer. In modern times, and especially in Western countries, many mosques also function as community centers, places for Muslims to come, as well as education. So if people are interested in just kind of learning about Islam, not converting, but just, especially after 9/11, a lot of people wanted to learn more about Islam, so they might have an educational type of setting. In other countries and in the past, they would serve as treasuries, they would serve as law courts, but a lot of those functions have moved from the mosque even in Muslim-majority countries. There are four essential elements of, this is the Taipei Mosque in Pakistan, and this is a mosque in Dearborn, Michigan. Michigan has a really sizable group of Muslims. As Muslims immigrated, especially toward the latter part of the 19th century, a lot of them immigrated to the Midwest because that's where there were a lot of jobs. So that's why there's a sizable group of Muslims in some place like Michigan, which you might not necessarily think of if you did that. Kind of with this as well, before we move to the four essentials, you see, of course, some similarities here, right? These long towers known as minarets. Many mosques will also feature domes. And so there are some things that are kind of what we call full-blown mosques, right? You can look at it and say that's a mosque. But in the West, there have been other expressions of this. In some places, you might find just a domed building. They might not have the towers. Some of that has to do with not so much different types of architecture as it is by communal ordinances, right? Communities saying we don't want a mosque here, and so you can't put minarets up and those kind of things. And so you have architecture like that. In the West as well, you might also find storefront mosques, right? And kind of in abandoned strip malls where they just kind of, you wouldn't know it was a mosque until you get up to the door and saw the prayer times on Friday or whatever. And so in the West, you see a variety of architectural expressions. But for it to be a mosque, there must be four essential characteristics, four things present. One of which is a fountain. Before entering the mosque, you're to ritually wash your hands and feet. Entering, services are segregated by gender. The men toward the front, the women toward the back, or maybe in some places separate rooms. Women as well also expected to cover their heads in going in. You take off your shoes as well entering the mosque. As mentioned before, large place for prayer. Not all prayer done in a mosque, but Fridays especially, a lot of Muslims will gather in the mosque for prayer. Usually there's also what's known as a minbar or a pulpit, right, a place where the imam might give a sermon on Friday. And then the mihrab. The mihrab is kind of a cutout in the wall that tells you which direction to pray, right? The Mecca is that way. Mosques, of course, as I mentioned already, faced a lot of challenges, especially after 9/11. There was a sudden decrease in the number of mosques built. A lot of Muslims using that money to try and educate people about Islam. And some of the stories that come out of some of these controversies are really quite, well, they're funny on one hand because of how absurd they are. So a couple of years ago, there was this big controversy over a mosque being built close to Ground Zero in New York. And so there was great concern, right? You know, Muslims were responsible for the towers coming down. How could this happen? But it wasn't a mosque. It was actually just a community center, for one thing, an Islamic center. But the other thing is that 2 blocks further was a mosque that had been there for 40 years. That nobody knew about because, but it was there and it was practicing and Muslims had been going, right? So it had been, it's actually where they were wanting to go was like an abandoned Burlington coat factory and, how holy Burlington coat factory.